In a galaxy teeming with life and secrets, the planet of Viridia was known for its lush forests, towering mountains, and vibrant cities. But today, it was the center of a new alliance between humans and the Viridian people. As part of this agreement, a human guard named David was assigned to protect Princess Leora, the youngest member of the Viridian royal family. Little did he know, this assignment would change both their lives forever. David was a tall, strong man with short brown hair and a determined look in his eyes. He had served in the Earth Space Force for several years and had seen his fair share of danger. However, nothing could prepare him for the challenge of guarding a royal princess, especially one from a different world. As he arrived at the royal palace, he felt a mix of excitement and nervousness. The palace was a marvel of architecture, with shimmering walls and gardens filled with strange, colorful plants. As he entered the grand hall, he was greeted by the sight of Princess Leora. She was unlike anyone he had ever seen. With her delicate features, shimmering blue skin, and flowing silver hair, she seemed almost otherworldly. Leora had a gentle smile that immediately put David at ease, but he could sense a weight on her shoulders. Being a princess was not as easy as it seemed, especially in a time of political unrest. The Viridian people were facing threats from a neighboring planet, and Leora was tasked with negotiating peace. However, she felt trapped by her royal duties and longed for freedom. David could see that she was more than just a princess. She was a person with dreams and fears. They exchanged polite greetings, and Leora's warm demeanor quickly made David feel welcome. As they walked through the palace together, Leora shared stories about her home and the unique customs of her people. David listened intently, fascinated by her tales of ancient traditions and the harmony of Viridia's nature. In return, he spoke of Earth, its bustling cities, and the challenges humans faced. They found common ground in their experiences despite their different backgrounds. Later that evening, as they prepared for bed, David learned that the security arrangements required them to share a room for the duration of his assignment. It was an unusual situation, but both understood the necessity. Leora assured him that her people valued trust and safety above all else. David nodded, feeling a sense of responsibility to protect her. As they settled into the room, David took the couch while Leora chose the bed. The room was elegantly decorated with soft lights illuminating the walls. However, the intimacy of sharing a space brought an unexpected tension between them. David couldn't help but admire Leora's grace and resilience, while she found comfort in his strong presence. That night, as they lay in silence, thoughts swirled in David's mind. He had always viewed aliens through the lens of his training, potential, threats or allies. But with Leora, everything felt different. He sensed a connection growing, an understanding that transcended their differences. In the stillness, Leora spoke softly, breaking the silence. "Thank you for being here, David. I feel safer knowing you are close." Her voice was sincere and it resonated with him. "I will do everything I can to protect you, Princess," he replied, his voice steady. As they drifted off to sleep, both were unaware that this assignment would lead them on a journey filled with unexpected truths, deepening their bond and challenging their beliefs about each other and their worlds. Little did they know, this was just the beginning of a tale that would test their courage and redefine what it meant to be allies in a galaxy filled with uncertainty. The next morning, sunlight streamed through the tall windows of the royal chamber, casting a warm glow across the room. David woke early, his mind still replaying the comforting words that Leora had spoken the night before. As he stretched and prepared for the day, he felt a growing sense of purpose. Protecting the princess was not just a duty, it was becoming a mission he cared about deeply. Leora, still resting, looked peaceful as she slept. Her silver hair fanned out like a halo around her head. David couldn't help but admire her beauty, but he quickly reminded himself of his role. He was her guard, not her friend. At least, not yet. He quietly left the room to allow her space to wake up. As he stepped into the palace corridor, he noticed the vibrant colors of the Viridian architecture. The walls were adorned with intricate patterns that told stories of the planet's history. David felt a sense of wonder walking through the halls, a feeling he hadn't experienced in a long time. The Viridian culture was rich and alive, and he was eager to learn more. After a while, Leora joined him, looking refreshed and ready for the day. She wore a flowing dress made of a fabric that shimmered like the morning dew. "Good morning, David," she greeted him with a bright smile. "Are you ready for today's activities?" David nodded. "What do you have planned?" he asked, intrigued. Leora explained that they would attend a gathering of the Viridian Council, where leaders from various regions would meet to discuss the threats facing their planet. It was a significant event, and Leora was expected to speak on behalf of her people. As they made their way to the council chamber, Leora shared her concerns about the meeting. "I feel a lot of pressure to make the right decisions," she admitted. "My people look to me for guidance, and I worry that I might fail them." David listened intently, wanting to reassure her. "You are strong, Leora. You can handle this. Just speak from your heart," he encouraged. When they arrived at the council chamber, the atmosphere was tense. Council members from different regions were already seated, their faces serious as they discussed the growing threat from the neighboring planet. As Leora took her place at the front, David stood at the back, ready to protect her if needed. Leora began to speak, her voice steady despite the pressure. "We must unite against the harvesters," she stated, her confidence growing with each word. "If we do not stand together, we risk losing everything we hold dear." David watched her, proud of her bravery. As she spoke, he saw the respect and admiration in the eyes of the council members. Leora was not just a princess, she was a leader. After the meeting, Leora was approached by several council members who wanted to discuss strategies. David remained nearby, observing the interactions. He could see that Leora was gaining their trust and respect, and it filled him with hope. Maybe together, they could find a way to protect her people. Later that evening, as they returned to their shared room, Leora seemed exhausted but fulfilled. "Today was a challenge, but I think I managed," she said with a smile. David nodded, feeling a sense of camaraderie growing between them. "You did great. Your people are lucky to have you," he replied genuinely. As they prepared for bed, the atmosphere in the room had shifted. The initial tension was replaced by an unspoken understanding. They were no longer just a guard and a princess. They were allies, facing the uncertainties of their worlds together. That night, as they lay in their respective places, David reflected on how quickly things had changed. He had come to Viridia simply to protect a princess, but now he felt a connection that ran deeper than duty. Both were learning from each other, discovering unexpected truths that would shape their destinies. The bond between them was growing stronger, and David realized that this journey might lead them to something far greater than either could have anticipated. As the days passed on Viridia, David and Leora continued to deepen their bond. The once formal relationship between a guard and a princess was evolving into something more profound: friendship. They shared their thoughts, fears, and dreams during quiet moments, and David found himself increasingly captivated by Leora's spirit. One evening, as they strolled through the palace gardens, the air filled with the sweet scent of blooming flowers, Leora turned to David with a serious expression. "I've been thinking about the harvesters," she began. "We need to prepare for their arrival. I fear they will not wait much longer to attack." David nodded, his expression grave. "I agree. We must strengthen our defenses and rally the people. Fear can spread quickly if we are not careful." Leora looked at him, her violet eyes filled with determination. "I appreciate your support, David. You see the situation clearly, and it gives me hope." Just then, a loud alarm echoed through the palace. The peaceful atmosphere was shattered as guards rushed past them, their expressions tense and focused. David's instincts kicked in. "Stay close to me, Leora," he instructed, taking her arm protectively. They hurried toward the source of the commotion, their hearts racing. When they reached the command center, the situation was chaotic. officers were gathered around screens displaying images of harvester ships approaching the planet. A commander was shouting orders and the atmosphere was thick with anxiety. David clenched his fists, ready to defend Leora at all costs. "Princess Leora, you shouldn't be here," one of the officers exclaimed, noticing her presence. But Leora stood her ground. "I need to know what is happening. My people need me," she insisted. David admired her courage but felt a surge of protectiveness. The commander turned to Leora, his face grim. "The harvesters are advancing faster than we anticipated. They have sent a small fleet to test our defenses. We need to act quickly." Leora listened attentively, her expression serious. "What can we do?" she asked, her voice steady. "First, we must unify our forces. We need every available ship ready for battle. We also need to evacuate civilians from the threatened areas," the commander replied. David stepped forward. "I can help. The Earth Space Force has experience in tactical defense. We can assist you in organizing the evacuation." Leora glanced at David, her eyes shining with gratitude. "Thank you, David. Your help will be invaluable." The commander nodded, impressed by David's readiness. "All right, let's get to work," he said, rallying the officers to mobilize their forces. As David and Leora worked alongside the Viridian military, a sense of urgency filled the air. David coordinated the evacuation efforts, ensuring that families were moved to safe zones while Leora addressed the people, urging them to remain calm and united. Her presence inspired hope, and David was amazed by her ability to connect with her people even in such dire circumstances. Hours passed as the tension mounted. David felt the weight of his responsibility grow heavier. He was not just protecting a princess, he was protecting a planet and the future of the Viridian people. Leora, too, felt the burden of leadership. She realized that every word she spoke could either inspire courage or spread fear. As night fell, Leora and David took a moment to breathe. They stood together on a balcony overlooking the vastness of space. The stars twinkled above them, a reminder of the beauty in the universe. "Even amidst chaos, no matter what happens, we will face it together," David said, looking at Leora with determination. Leora nodded, her heart swelling with emotion. "Together," she agreed. They exchanged a glance filled with understanding, realizing that this shared experience was forging a connection that went beyond duty. They were allies, comrades, and perhaps something more. As they prepared for the impending battle, both David and Leora knew that the next day would be crucial. The harvesters were coming, and they would need every ounce of strength and unity to confront the challenges ahead. Together, they were ready to face whatever the universe threw at them. The dawn of the day arrived with an eerie stillness, as if the universe itself was holding its breath. David stood on the balcony of the royal palace, gazing out at the vastness of space. The stars shimmered like distant diamonds, but his mind was focused on the impending battle. He could feel the tension in the air, a palpable energy that seemed to pulse with uncertainty. Leora joined him shortly after, her presence filling the space with a sense of calm. She wore her ceremonial armor, a beautiful blend of Viridian craftsmanship and practicality. The armor reflected her royal status while also preparing her for the challenges ahead. "Good morning, David," she said softly, her voice steady. "Are you ready for today?" David turned to her, seeing the determination in her violet eyes. "As ready as I can be. Today is important, Leora. We will face the harvesters together." He felt a surge of confidence just by standing beside her. Leora smiled, a mixture of gratitude and resolve on her face. "Together," she echoed, reminding him of the bond they had forged. After a quick breakfast in the palace, they made their way to the command center, where the atmosphere was charged with urgency. Officers were busy coordinating with the military, and the hum of activity filled the room. David took his position alongside Leora, ready to support her in any way possible. "Princess Leora," the commander greeted her as she entered. "We have received updates from our scouts. The harvester fleet is approaching faster than we anticipated. They will arrive within the hour. Leora nodded, her expression serious. We must prepare the defenses immediately. David, can you assist with coordinating the ground forces? Of course, David replied, feeling the adrenaline coursing through him. He quickly joined a team of officers working to ensure that every soldier was in position and ready to fight. His training kicked in, and he felt a sense of purpose as he organized the troops. Meanwhile, Leora addressed the gathered council members and military leaders. We must stay united, she urged, her voice strong. The harvesters are driven by fear and chaos. If we remain calm and focused, we can defend our home. Her words resonated, and David could see the spark of hope, igniting in the eyes of those around her. As the minutes passed, the tension grew. David could feel the weight of responsibility on his shoulders. Protecting Leora was his primary mission, but he also understood that the fate of the Viridian people rested on their ability to work together. He glanced at her, noting the determination etched onto her face. She was ready to face whatever came their way. Suddenly, an officer burst into the command center, out of breath. They're here! The harvester ships are entering our atmosphere! Panic rippled through the room. David's heart raced, but he pushed back the fear. Stay focused, he shouted, trying to rally the troops. We can do this! Leora stepped forward, her voice cutting through the chaos. We are Viridians, we will not be intimidated. Her fierce words sparked a renewed sense of bravery among the crowd. David felt a rush of pride as he watched her lead with strength and grace. As alarms blared, David and Leora took their positions. The command center became a hub of action, with officers relaying information and strategizing the defense. David felt a surge of adrenaline as he moved between teams, ensuring everything was in order. With the harvester ships now visible in the sky, dark and menacing, David steeled himself for the battle ahead. He looked at Leora, who stood tall beside him, her resolve unshakable. Together they were ready to confront the darkness that threatened their worlds. The calm before the storm had ended, and now they would fight for their future, side by side. As the first harvester ship descended, David knew this was the moment they had prepared for. They would not only defend Viridia, but also protect the bond they had forged in the face of adversity. The battle for their lives was about to begin, and they were ready to face it together. As the first harvester ship descended through the clouds, a sense of urgency filled the air. The massive, dark vessel cast a shadow over the palace, its ominous presence sending shivers down David's spine. He stood next to Leora in the command center, both of them ready to defend Viridia. The tension was palpable as the alarms blared, signaling the beginning of the battle. David, Leora exclaimed, her voice steady despite the chaos. We need to get the civilians to safety. The evacuation must be our priority. He nodded, appreciating her calm leadership in the midst of fear. I'll organize the ground teams to guide them to the shelters. You focus on the defense here. With a quick glance, Leora gave him a determined smile, and David felt the weight of his responsibility sharpen. He dashed out of the command center, his pulse racing as he moved through the palace halls. He quickly gathered a group of guards and began directing them to assist with the evacuation. Listen up, David called to the assembled guards. Our main objective is to protect the civilians. We need to guide everyone to the underground shelters. Stay calm and move quickly. They nodded, their expression serious. David felt a surge of confidence seeing their resolve. Together, they could make a difference. As they moved through the palace grounds, David could hear the distant rumble of explosions. The harvester ships were attacking various parts of the city, and the sounds of chaos echoed in the air. He led the guards from door to door, urging families to leave their homes and follow him to safety. Please stay close, David encouraged as he led a group of frightened civilians. The children clutched their parents' hands, their eyes wide with fear. We are going to a safe place, just keep moving. He could feel his heart pounding, but he pushed through his fear for their sake. Meanwhile, back in the command center, Leora was coordinating the defense with the military leaders. We need to focus our fire on the lead ship, she ordered, her voice commanding. The officers moved quickly, relaying her commands to the ground and air forces. Leora watched the screen intently, her heart racing as she saw the harvester. Ships unleashed their weapons, causing destruction in the city. "Prepare the defensive shields," one officer shouted. "We need to protect the palace at all costs." Leora nodded, knowing that the palace was not just a building. It was a symbol of hope for her people. They would fight to defend it. As David continued his evacuation efforts, he heard a loud explosion nearby. The ground shook beneath him and dust filled the air. "We need to hurry," he urged, guiding the civilians faster toward the shelters. Just as they reached the entrance, another explosion echoed, this one much closer. David felt a rush of adrenaline as he quickly ushered everyone inside. "Stay here and stay quiet," he instructed the families as he turned back toward the chaos outside. He knew he had to return to Leora. As he ran back through the streets, he could see Viridian soldiers engaging the harvester forces, their weapons lighting up the dark sky. When David finally reached the command center again, he found Leora standing, firm, coordinating the defense. "David," she called out as she spotted him. "I'm glad you're back. We need every hand on deck. Have the civilians reached safety?" she asked, concern flashing in her eyes. "Yes, they are in the shelters," David replied, his breath heavy from running. "What's the situation?" "Worse than we thought. The harvesters are relentless. They're using some kind of energy weapon that disrupts our shields," Leora explained, her brow furrowed in worry. David could see the determination in her eyes, and it filled him with strength. "Then we must fight back with everything we have. We cannot let them take our home." Leora nodded, her resolve hardening. "You're right. We will defend Viridia, no matter the cost." With that, they turned back to the screens displaying the battle, ready to face the enemy together. The future of their worlds depended on their courage, and they would not back down. As the battle raged on, David and Leora stood side by side, united in their fight against the darkness. Together, they would protect their home and each other, no matter what challenges lay ahead. The storm had arrived, and they were ready to face it head-on. The battle raged around them, a cacophony of explosions, shouts, and the crackle of energy weapons. David stood alongside Leora in the command center, their eyes fixed on the screens displaying the chaos outside. The Viridian forces were putting up a brave fight, but the harvesters were relentless, their dark ships pouring down fire upon the city. "Deploy the aerial units," Leora commanded, her voice steady despite the turmoil. "We need to take out those harvester ships before they can do more damage." David felt pride swell in his chest as he watched her lead with such strength. She was not just a princess. She was a true leader, rallying her people in their darkest hour. As the aerial units took off from the launch pads, David turned to Leora. "What's our plan if they breach the palace?" he asked, concern etched on his face. "We need a backup strategy." Leora nodded, her expression serious. "If they get this far, we must protect the civilians in the shelter at all costs. We can use the underground tunnels to evacuate them if necessary." David agreed, knowing that their safety was paramount. "Let's prepare for that possibility," he said, his mind racing with strategies. Outside, the battle intensified. The harvester ships unleashed a new wave of energy blasts, striking the palace walls and sending debris flying. David could see soldiers scrambling to return fire, but the harvesters seemed to anticipate their every move. "They're too organized," David muttered, frustration creeping in. Just then, an officer rushed into the command center, breathless. "Commander, we've detected a weakness in the harvester formation. If we can coordinate our fire, we might be able to break through." Leora's eyes lit up with hope. "Then we must act quickly." "David, gather the ground troops and prepare them for a focused attack on that weak point. We have to strike while we can." David nodded, ready to take action. He stepped out of the command center and called for the soldiers nearby. "Listen, up. We have a chance to turn the tide of this battle. We need to focus our fire on the harvester ship at the eastern flank. Let's coordinate our shots and hit them hard." The soldiers rallied around him, their expressions shifting from fear to determination. They knew this was their moment to fight back. David felt a surge of adrenaline as he led the troops toward their new position, a sense of purpose guiding his every step. As they reached the eastern flank, David took a deep breath, feeling the weight of their mission. On my mark, we fire together. 1, 2, 3. At his command, a barrage of energy blasts erupted from the soldiers, striking the harvester ship with precision. To David's relief, the ship shuddered, smoke billowing from its hull. "We did it," one of the soldiers cheered. But the victory was short-lived as the remaining harvester ships began to retaliate fiercely, their weapons targeting the soldiers. "Fall back," David shouted, but it was too late. A powerful blast struck nearby, sending David flying to the ground. Stars danced in his vision as he struggled to regain his senses. "Leora!" he called out, panic rising in his chest. He needed to ensure she was safe. After a moment, David managed to push himself up, his body aching. He scanned the area, searching for Leora. He spotted her near the command center, directing the troops with unwavering focus. Relief flooded through him. She was all right. Just then, he noticed a harvester soldier advancing toward her position. David's instincts kicked in. "Leora, watch out!" he shouted, rushing forward. He felt the adrenaline course through him as he charged toward the enemy. In a swift motion, he tackled the harvester soldier, knocking it to the ground. David quickly disarmed it, taking its weapon in hand. He turned to Leora, who was watching, with wide eyes. "Are you okay?" he asked, concern etched on his face. "I'm fine, David, but we need to regroup," she replied, her voice steady. Together they fought through the chaos, determined to protect their home and each other. As the battle continued, David realized that their connection had deepened. They were more than just a guard and a princess. They were partners in this fight, united against a common enemy. With each moment they fought together, their bond grew stronger, and David knew they would not give up. They would face whatever challenges lay ahead side by side, ready to turn the tide of battle and protect everything they held dear. The battle raged on, but the tide had begun to turn. With David and Leora leading the charge, the Viridian forces found new strength and determination. Each moment they fought together deepened their bond, and their combined courage inspired the soldiers around them. They were no longer just fighting against the harvesters. They were fighting for their home, their people, and each other. As the sun began to set, casting an orange glow over the battlefield, David felt a renewed sense of hope. The harvester ships had lost significant power, and their formations were beginning to falter. "We can do this," he shouted to the troops, rallying them for one final push. "Let's show them what Viridia stands for." Leora stood at his side, her presence a beacon of strength. "Together we will drive them back," she cried, her voice ringing with conviction. The soldiers cheered, their fear replaced by a fierce determination to protect their world. With a united front, they launched a coordinated attack on the weakened harvester ships. David could see the fear in the enemy's movements as they struggled to regroup. Blasts of energy erupted from both sides, but the Viridian forces were relentless, pushing forward with every ounce of strength they had. Suddenly, a massive explosion rocked the ground nearby, sending dust and debris flying into the air. David stumbled but quickly regained his footing. He looked over at Leora, who was still commanding the troops. "We need to keep moving," he yelled, his heart racing. "Don't let up." As they advanced, David noticed that some of the harvester ships were starting to retreat. The sight filled him with hope. "They're breaking," he shouted, urging the soldiers to press on. "Let's finish this." But just as victory seemed within reach, a colossal harvester ship appeared from behind the clouds, larger and more menacing than the others. It hovered ominously above the battlefield, its weapons charging for a final strike. "Everyone, take cover!" Leora shouted, her voice breaking through the chaos. David grabbed Leora's arm, pulling her to safety, behind a nearby barrier. "We need to find a way to stop that ship," he said urgently. "It could destroy everything we fought for." Leora nodded, her expression grave. "We have to disrupt its power core. If we can target that, we might bring it down." With renewed purpose, David and Leora quickly devised a plan. The two of them would lead a small team to infiltrate the harvester ship while the main forces provided cover. "It's risky," David said, concern flickering in his eyes. "But it might be our only chance." "I trust you, David," Leora replied, her voice steady. "Let's do this together." They rallied a few brave soldiers and moved toward the colossal ship, dodging blasts as they went. The ground shook beneath them as the harvester ship unleashed its firepower, but they pressed forward, determined to reach their goal. As they approached the ship, David could see a small opening where they could slip inside. "This is it," he shouted, motioning for the team to follow. They entered the ship, the interior dark and filled with strange machinery. The hum of energy surrounded them, making the air feel electric. Navigating through the corridors, they finally reached the power core. It pulsed with a bright light, and David could feel the heat radiating from it. "We need to plant explosives. Here," he said, setting to work. Leora kept watch, her eyes scanning for any signs of danger. Just as David finished setting the charges, alarms blared throughout the ship. "They know we're here," Leora shouted, her voice urgent. "We have to get out now." They sprinted back through the corridors, the ship shaking violently as the countdown began. As they reached the exit, explosions erupted behind them. The power core had been hit, and the ship was beginning to crumble. "Jump!" David yelled, leaping through the opening as debris fell around them. Leora followed closely, and they landed safely on the ground just as the harvester ship exploded in a brilliant flash of light. The shockwave knocked them off their feet, and David quickly rolled to get back up. When he looked around, he saw that the remaining harvester ships were retreating, their formations in disarray. The Viridian forces cheered, realizing that they had won. As David caught his breath, he turned to Leora, who was grinning with joy. "We did it," she exclaimed, her eyes sparkling with excitement. David smiled back, feeling a wave of relief wash over him. "We really did," he replied, knowing that their bond had grown stronger through every challenge they faced. With the battle finally over, the people of Viridia began to emerge from their shelters, their faces filled with hope and gratitude. David and Leora stood side by side, knowing that they had not only defended their home but also forged a lasting partnership. Together, they had faced darkness and emerged victorious, ready to build a brighter future for their worlds. As the sun dipped below the horizon, casting a warm light over the battlefield, David and Leora looked toward the stars, knowing that this was just the beginning of their journey together. They were no longer just a guard and a princess. They were allies, friends, and perhaps something even more. Together, they would face whatever challenges lay ahead, uniting their worlds in peace and hope.